What started as a quiet night shift at Walmart turned into a nightmare of whispers, shadows, and smiling faces that should not exist. And once you see them, you can never leave. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a pale, sickly glow across the nearly empty aisles of Walmart. It was just after 2 a.m., the hour when the store seemed to transform into something unnatural. Shoppers were rare at that time, only the occasional insomniac or trucker passing through, but tonight felt different. The silence wasn't comforting, it was suffocating, pressing in from every direction. I was working the night shift, restocking shelves in the home goods section. The distant beep of scanners from the self-checkout echoed faintly, though I couldn't see anyone there. My manager Carl was somewhere in the back office, and 2 other employees were working across the store. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I pushed a cart of lamps into the aisle, when suddenly one of the light bulbs above flickered violently before going out. The darkness that replaced it wasn't ordinary, it felt heavier, swallowing the space around me. I froze listening. That's when I heard it, a soft shuffle like dragging footsteps coming from the toy aisle. Curious but uneasy, I leaned my cart against the shelf and crept closer. The toy section was always unsettling after hours, rows of dolls with glassy eyes staring into the void. As I turned the corner, the air grew colder, and every doll seemed to face me at once, as if waiting. Then a sound cut through the silence, a faint giggle. Childlike, high-pitched, echoing from deep inside the aisle. My stomach dropped. There were no children here, not at 2 a.m. My hands tightened into fists, my breath shallow as I stepped forward. The giggle came again, closer this time, followed by the unmistakable scrape of something moving along the floor. And then I saw it. At the far end of the toy aisle, between rows of stuffed animals and action figures, something crouched low to the ground. My eyes strained in the dim light, catching the outline of a small figure, too small to be an adult, too still to be alive. It looked like a boy, no older than 6, sitting cross-legged on the dirty floor. His head was bent at an unnatural angle, chin nearly touching his shoulder. A filthy hoodie clung to his tiny frame, the sleeves shredded at the edges. What unsettled me most, though, wasn't his stillness, it was the way his fingers tapped against the linoleum. A steady, rhythmic pattern. Almost like a signal. "Hey, kid." My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Slowly, the boy lifted his head. His eyes caught the pale fluorescent glow and my stomach turned. They were too large for his face, glassy and unblinking like the dolls on the shelves. His mouth stretched into a smile, wide, jagged, impossibly sharp teeth glistening in the faint light. Before I could move, he let out another giggle. But this time, it didn't echo like a child's laugh. It splintered into multiple tones, layering over each other, like dozens of voices spilling from one tiny throat. I stumbled back, knocking a row of action figures onto the floor. Their plastic packaging cracked loudly, but the sound didn't cover the sudden thump behind me. I whipped around, nothing. Only an empty aisle. When I turned back, the boy was gone. Panic clawed at my chest. I rushed back to my cart in the home goods section, but when I got there, the lamps I'd stacked were gone. Every last one. In their place was something else, rows of small, child-sized handprints smeared across the shelves, pressed deep into the dust. And each handprint was pointing toward the back of the store. The handprints seemed to glow faintly under the flickering lights, all angled toward the double doors at the far end of the store, the back room. My pulse hammered as I gripped the cart handle, debating whether to call Carl on the store phone or just walk out right then. But something compelled me forward, like invisible threads pulling me into the dark. The air grew colder as I approached, the silence broken only by the hum of the overhead lights. The metal doors groaned when I pushed them open, revealing the cavernous stockroom. Stacks of boxes towered on all sides, shadows stretching between them like tall, crooked fingers. The smell hit me first, damp cardboard, motor oil, and something else. Something metallic. Blood. A faint trail of red smeared across the concrete floor, weaving through the maze of shelves. My throat tightened. I followed the trail cautiously, my footsteps echoing louder than they should have. Each step made me feel like I was walking into someone else's trap. Then I heard it. Whispers. Dozens of them, overlapping in a chorus, yet hushed, like they were seeping out from the walls themselves. I froze, straining to catch words, but the language was foreign, garbled, and wrong, until a single word broke through the noise. Stay. The blood trail ended at a pallet stacked with unopened boxes of toys. One box on top had been torn open, its cardboard edges shredded like claws had ripped through it. Inside wasn't plastic or packaging paper. It was a child's shoe. Small, muddy, fresh. The whispers swelled until they were deafening. I turned sharply, and standing just a few feet away was Carl, my manager. But his face was pale, his lips trembling, and behind his wide eyes, I saw the same glassy reflection I had seen in the boys. Carl stood motionless in the stockroom, his chest heaving like he had run miles, but his eyes, those eyes weren't his. They glistened in the dim light, too big, too empty, like dark marbles reflecting everything but life itself. "Carl, are you okay?" My voice quivered. He didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand and pointed deeper into the maze of shelves. I followed the line of his trembling finger. At the far end, shadows stirred, shifting against the boxes like they had weight. One by one, figures stepped forward. Small figures. Children. At least a dozen of them, their tiny forms shuffling into the open, each one with the same twisted smile, the same glassy eyes. Their giggles rose in unison, bouncing off the concrete walls until the air seemed to vibrate. My stomach churned. These weren't kids, they were something wearing the shape of kids. I backed up slowly, my heart hammering in my throat. "Carl, we need to get out of here." But Carl didn't move. His lips twitched as if he wanted to say something, then stretched into a smile too wide for his face. With a guttural crack, his jaw unhinged slightly and a sound poured out, not his voice but the same overlapping chorus I had heard earlier. The word came again, louder this time. "Stay." The children crept closer, their bare feet slapping the concrete, leaving smears of blood in their wake. One of them reached forward, clutching a doll. But the doll's face was sewn over with what looked like human skin, its button eyes crooked and wet. I stumbled backward, bumping into a stack of boxes. They toppled over with a crash, and for a split second the lights overhead went out completely. When they flickered back on, Carl and the children were gone. But the whispers hadn't left. They were now circling me, louder, closer, breathing at the back of my neck. The whispers swarmed around me, filling every corner of the stockroom. I spun in place, desperate to see where they were coming from, but nothing moved. No children. No Carl. Just the endless stacks of boxes, looming like tombstones. I bolted for the doors. My sneakers squealed against the concrete as I tore down the aisle, past the blood-smeared trail, past the pallets of toys that suddenly looked less like boxes and more like coffins. The steel double doors came into view, and with every ounce of strength, I slammed against them. They didn't budge. I yanked the handles, pushed, pulled, nothing. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, fogging the air around me. That's when I saw my reflection in the narrow glass window of the door. At first it was just me, sweat-soaked, wide-eyed. But then, slowly, my reflection began to change. The eyes. They grew glassy, too large, too hollow, just like Carl's. Just like the children's. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. My reflection smiled, even though I didn't. Its lips parted, teeth jagged and wrong, and in a voice layered with countless others, it whispered, "You've already stayed." Behind me the laughter started again. High-pitched, broken, overlapping. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The children were there, rows of them, filling the stockroom aisle. Carl stood among them, smiling wide, his eyes black voids now. In their small hands they held the missing lamps from my cart, each one lit, glowing not with light bulbs but with faintly pulsing shapes inside. Hearts. The children began to move forward, giggling in perfect rhythm. My reflection in the door pressed its face closer to the glass, still grinning. The lights above flickered once, twice, and then the store went black. And in that darkness, the whispers spoke the final word. Forever.